Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
You didn't press record, but there you are, in someone's live stream, or their vlog, or their viral clip. No permission asked, no warning given. So when does being in public mean giving up your right to your own face? We're coming to you from our studios in Beijing. This is Roundtable. I'm Steve, and for today's show, I'm with Fei Fei and Yangyang. First up, in an era where live streams and cameras are everywhere, you might find yourself appearing in someone else's content without even realizing it. And it might not be too much of a stretch to say it's already happened. From everyday streets to coffee shops, gyms, and concert venues, the line between public life and recorded life is becoming increasingly blurred. A stranger's video can go viral in hours, and your face could be in it without a single word of your consent. So the question is simple, but it's also urgent. When your image enters someone else's camera, where do the boundaries of consent and personal rights actually lie, and who gets to draw that line? Serious questions, Fei Fei and Yangyang. Good afternoon to you both. And I think it's something that I meant when I said that it probably has happened to all of us at some point in time, and we didn't even realize it.
Yeah, especially today in China, when live streams are basically one of the most important ways of sales for businesses, regardless of what industries you're working in. For example, in restaurants, they are using like these kind of live streams to promote their businesses, and they're in gyms and also in barbershops and salons, and also in like public and semi-public spaces like the Beijing Auto Show, that not only they're running live streams, there are also influencers taking vlogs, making videos, and also even the business themselves will make videos. And as customers, as it passes by, sometimes you just enter into that camera and get filmed. And I can give you an example here in China. For example, in restaurants, especially for smaller ones, I guess, they often set up a camera most of the time, their phones, and they set up the camera facing the dining areas, and then they live streaming their customer activities to showcase, first of all, how busy or how popular their restaurant is, and also, for example, to show the decor of that restaurant and what kind of environment the customers may get, what kind of occasions, for instance, these kind of restaurants will you be dining in. And so basically it's a way for them to, get into more customer base, and that can sometimes get complaint from customers because it's a small phone set up probably in the corner of a restaurant, and a patrons entering into that dining area didn't realize they're getting filmed, getting into the shots of their live streams.
Yang, because I've heard that there are signs posted where a restaurant will say, we are live streaming in a certain section of this restaurant, so if you don't want to be in this live stream, then don't sit in that section. Have you seen those signs before?
Well, I personally didn't see those signs before, but I definitely have seen some videos on TikTok or on some red nose social media platforms that these kind of live streams are ongoing, showcasing, random customers eating, maybe in the gym. Some customers are working out and their faces go like all scrunched up. And they're sweaty, get exhausted, and it was all live streaming. So I guess this is like really common in China, considering the scale of live streaming, right?
Yeah, so it's happening in restaurants. And we've seen in restaurants where they'll show you cameras or they'll show you camera views of what's happening in the kitchen, right? I have seen that before. And that's for transparency, so you can see what's going on. You can see them preparing the food. In gyms, it's a little bit different. And by the way, in restaurants now, they're not just doing that. They're not just showing the camera view of what's happening in the kitchen. They're actually live streaming, so the customers' faces can appear there. In gyms, it's a little bit of a different situation, though, because, well, I don't know. Am I wrong? Most of the time, it's the customers in the gym that are live streaming. But are gyms now live streaming themselves as well?
Well, I've bumped into some of this kind of gym live streaming before on Douyin, I believe. I think they're trying to avoid these complaints coming from, customers working out. You get all sweaty, your face is all flushed from all the heavy lifting. You don't want to get a live stream.
Or you're doing nothing in the gym.
And get exposed.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're trying to find, you can see that they're placing their phone or their camera in an angle that feels like it's in a corner. So it's sort of showing the gym, but not too much. So sometimes you can see parts of the body, for example, for people that's running on a treadmill. So I think it's one way. Well, I also need to put it into context. When it comes to these live streams, it do helps a lot of small businesses to promote themselves on bigger platforms like Douyin, because I think we also talked about this kind of issues on Roundtable before, is that if you want to get listed on other platforms, on rating platforms, for example, you need to pay for that most of the time. And that cannot be afforded by a lot of small businesses. And these kind of live streams are
these are free.
Yeah, and they sort of remove these barriers for them to get more traffic and more flows of customers.
At that same time, though, they can feel a little bit more intrusive for people, because I think for me, I would be more bothered about me at the gym than I would be at a restaurant. And that's up for debate. Really, we're talking about the same thing here, though. It doesn't matter what you're doing. The fact is that people are complaining that they're appearing on camera when they didn't know that they were going to be on camera. Restaurants, gyms, and Yangyang, this one's surprising to me, barber shops and salons.
Yes, well, barbershop and salons are also commonly seen on social media because a lot of barbers will promote their shops using the before and after videos.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
It's very popular.
to show their techniques. So this is like, I think most of the videos are made by getting the customer's consent. So it's live streaming. If there's a camera in front of the person, some barbers, they might assume that the customer already know that this is going on live stream. But some customer, if they don't know that, and they might not even realize that, the whole process is being filmed.
Yeah.
So that is where the problem is.
And this might be the most serious of the cases that we've discussed so far. Because in a restaurant, okay, whatever, you're eating, you might be off in the distance. I suppose the serious case there might be with whom you are eating. If you're
You don't want to get exposed.
if you don't want that to be known, that could be a serious problem, right?
That's true.
The gyms, okay, you're put in a bit of a compromised position. Yeah, the sweatiness and all that. Nobody really wants that to be exposed on the outside. The barbershop's a little bit of a different situation, though, because this is you and you alone. And you're just sitting there. And you're sitting there, and oftentimes the barber or the person cutting your hair, the hairdresser, will have a conversation with you. So what type of conversation are you having? What are you saying? And if you're not completely aware that you're being live streamed at the time, that seems to me like a serious violation of privacy. And then, all those situations we talked about, and then beyond that, you've got the broader public in semi or fully public spaces where people become part of almost like a background character to someone else's content. You could be walking through a mall, you could be walking through a park. There's a park nearby here where at night, I'm pretty sure she's live streaming. There's a young lady who sets up her phone and she's doing some kind of dance performance to her camera. And I'm always careful. It's right next to the sidewalk, and I'm always careful to kind of stay on the side of the sidewalk that's furthest away from the camera angle so I suddenly don't appear in there. So it's very easy to happen in public too. But why are we seeing this now? Why are there so many more cameras in public spaces that we might run into? What's the reason for this?
Well, just like we have just said, the live streaming business is like so huge in China. From 2019 to 2024, data have shown that live streaming, especially live streaming e-commerce alone, expanded more than 12-fold, contributing around 80% of overall e-commerce growth in 2024. And besides the scale of live streaming, I think the overall online internet users and the vloggers, influencers are also increasing as well. I've seen some data from major news outlet in China that in 2025, the number of short videos creator accounts has reached 1.6 billion. Across the country, more than 130 million short videos are uploaded every day. So considering
that's
a lot.
That's a mind-blowing
yeah,
number.
that's mind-blowing number. So with so much online content, whether it's live streaming or short videos, so many cameras pointing at you daily, it's very hard not to be the background characters or even the main characters in the live streaming or like online content.
That's so true. I don't know, maybe I'm the background of how many influencers or businesses live streaming or making videos online. And I will give another example that's been quite prominent. For example, at the Beijing Auto Show this year, earlier this month in May, a Wall Street Journal actually posted a report, sort of analyst. They said they found live streaming at that event is becoming the core sales channel. So
really?
Yeah, it means that the show floor was filled with influencers, live streaming vehicles directly to audiences via mobile phones. And it's sort of reflecting, that piece of analysis says it reflects how car sales in China increasingly integrated with real-time digital commerce like live streaming. But I also think it's also pointing to all industries in China, is that if you want to get more exposure, if you want to talk directly to your audiences, that means you need to get into live streaming.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's easy. It's really easy to understand the advantages of why businesses would want to do this, or just anything you want to promote, and that includes yourself, why you would go this avenue. Now, the problems, let's get into some of the problems here. Obviously, we kind of touched on it already. It's personal privacy rights. If you're out and about in a restaurant, a gym, a hair salon, or whatever, and you're being filmed and you don't know it, you feel like your privacy is being violated. But another, and perhaps the secondary issue to this, is once your image goes out there into the internet, you lose control over that image, over your image in that digital space.
Not only that, Steve, actually thinking about, for example, that barbershops example, that barber, even though he or she filmed the process of hairdressing with my consent, even though he or she said, probably promised, I will mute this content or I will only show these kind of footages online, but you can't guarantee that's how they're going to use all the footages they film.
Okay, yes.
So I think that's also kind of the losing of control of all the contents, even though it's not online, but it's also sort of in the bank of some creators out there, and you don't know how they're going to make use of these kind of resources.
Or manipulate it.
That's true. So
deep fake.
That's true,
right?
with different technologies. So I think that's another risk that's really being complained by a lot of customers or also users out there, raising this kind of concerns. I think Yangyang, you talked about an example from, I think, a very prominent park in China before, right?
Yeah, well, I think what you're referring to is the Shanghai Disney case. So in Shanghai Disney, recently in the Zootopia area, there is a sign saying that when you walk in this park, you will be automatically filmed for promotional videos. And also, a lot of people will have this kind of doubt. Should I enter this park because I really want to go to this park, but if I enter this park, I will be filmed. And one lawyer goes even further. He's even sued the Shanghai Disneyland for infringing the privacy and also the portrait rights. So this is also a very high-profile case showing that sometimes you cannot really control the use of your image for like promotional purposes or making a commercial benefit. And also at the opposite of this is that the low cost and weak deterrence of the infringement, because even when those like violations of your images or portrait rights are identified, the typical outcome is often limited. For example, maybe somebody uses your images online, and the results is like he or she is required to remove that image or delete that videos and issue apology for you. But like even if you remove one image or like one video, there are thousands of like videos maybe saved and also screenshotted. So you can't
because
really
other
control.
people could have watched that, screenshotted it themselves. The point there is that you don't know where it's gone.
Yeah.
And you don't know to what extent it will be used. I want to talk a little bit more about this case with Shanghai Disney, because it is one of the most high-profile examples of this controversy right now. The case, as far as I know, has not been resolved just yet. It's an ongoing situation, but still worth talking about. The dispute in particular here is an interesting one because, as you said, Yangyang, the area in Shanghai Disney at the Zootopia part, they clearly put a sign that says, "We are live streaming. If you enter this area, there is a chance you will be a part of our live stream. This is being live streamed for promotional purposes." But the dispute is not related to whether they put a sign there or not. It's because consent was not actively given through a clear opt-in process. And by opt-in process, meaning you're given the choice. You're given the choice to say yes or no. So instead, all you're doing here is simply entering the area, but that was treated as automatic agreement.
So if I didn't really notice that sign, for example, I just walked by past it, I also sort of automatically gave Disney my consent of using my image.
In practice, in this particular situation, it means that visitors were effectively forced to choose between giving up their image right or giving up their access to the attraction. So
that's not comfortable.
It's another wrinkle, if you will, to this story because you paid
A lot of money.
park entry.
Yeah.
And now they're saying, oh, but you can't come into this part unless you agree to be a part of our promotional video or our live stream or what have you. And that's what raised the questions about implied consent through entry. Is that fair? Is that a legally valid reason or a legally valid way, to define the boundary of personal use? I'm really looking forward to seeing what the outcome of this case is going to be. I'm sure the argument will be, you see the sign, you enter, that equals consent. And the argument against, we just touched on it, you're basically forcing consent upon me if I want to experience the park.
Yeah, if I want to visit, if my goal that day of visiting Disney is to go to Zootopia area, and now you're telling me I cannot enter this area during this time frame, I will be very uncomfortable as a
Seriously,
customer,
yeah.
right?
And the more upset thing is that you already paid for the entrance of the park and you didn't go in. And also, if you go in, they will make money out of your portrait or images.
Yeah, and because they're using this content as a promotional video.
Yeah. That reminds me, I haven't seen Zootopia 2 yet. Have you? Is it good?
Yeah, it was really, really
I
good.
assumed it would be good. All right, so if we're very clear on what's going on, which we are, we know where, for the most part, people are conducting these live streams. And we're very clear on the fact that many people don't like it, then what can we actually do about it? If we don't want to be filmed in public, what can be done?
Well, at the platform and business level, stronger responsibility mechanism are necessary For example, live stream platforms and merchants should be required to clearly mark filming areas, provide visible notices, and offer real outbound options such as non-filming zones or the ability to avoid being included in the live feeds. And platforms can also use technical tools like automatic face blurring and strengthen enforcement by quickly responding to complaints and restricting repeat offenders.
And on the legal and regulatory level, I think it's pretty clear that the legal system put it out there that a clear standard for consent is very, very essential, especially when it comes to commercial promotions. And as we discussed for the Shanghai Disney Zootopia case, the implied content through entry creates confusion, and also that weakens individual rights. For example, I need to choose between giving up my image rights or giving up my rights to visit that area.
It's a gray area, isn't it? Because they're not forcing you not to, but they're not exactly giving you complete and utter freedom and privacy either.
So clear requirements actually for explicit, informed, and voluntary consent, especially for cases involving these kind of identifiable individuals, would help define the boundary more precisely. But that's for when it comes to businesses and promotional values out there. But I think when it comes to this kind of live streaming and video content creating these days, a lot of this content is created, what media scholars call them, is the ambience filming.
What's that?
Meaning that you are not the star, the protagonist of that video. You are just the background ones. So, for example, some influencer is filming his or her vlog at a restaurant and you just happen to walk by and you are that ambience. How can you avoid that? And what kind of boundaries should we set for this kind of content? Should we ask the influencer to get everybody's consent for every passersby in his or her video?
It's impossible.
Yeah, it's unworkable. So I think for our individuals, for us, being aware, just keeping in mind if I'm okay with this kind of video making is acceptable to me. If I'm okay with being a background of a video, then just let it go. If not, just be aware of any cameras or phones appear, next to you.
That doesn't seem fair, though, does it?
That's true.
It doesn't seem fair that you're putting the onus on the person who's actually not involved in any of the live streaming whatsoever. And as far as I know, here in China, if someone is live streaming out in public, it's perfectly fine for your face to appear. They are not legally required, because it's a public space, they are not legally required to ask for your consent.
Yeah, according to the Chinese, I think it's called Personal Information Protection Law, they have distinguished between this kind of incidental, non-focused, this ambience live streaming
not focused on you.
Yeah, between the identifiable, meaning you can be targeted in that video kind of content. So they are giving this kind of space for content, for this ambience contents online, because I think simply because it's just not applicable. If we're asking every platform, every video creator, every live streamer out there to get every consent of everybody appearing in every video.
Yeah, it's just not it's not a feasible thing to do.
Also, portrait right or images are abstract in legal terms. It's very hard to distinguish or to give an definition to the damage or how bad it hurts you if somebody use your image or portrait
That's
online.
That's a great point too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. How do you define how much damage has been done? Does it bother either of you? We've all seen it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen people live streaming, and does it bug you?
I bet I've been in the ambience of some influencer out there. I'm not sure, especially if I'm visiting a tourism spot. A lot of people are live streaming without a sign, without giving a big notice out there because, they're just holding a phone like any visitor out there. And I think as long as there's no harm is done for me personally, and also they're not doing it, for example, that Disney case, they're doing for a business promotional video, then it's a different story. If it's only an individual live streamer, it's only a video an influencer online, I'm not the target of that video. It's just the reality we're in right now. I just have to get used to that.
It is what it is. Yang, does it bother you?
Well, before I'm a little bit bugged, but being a reporter, I need to record like as much as possible. I kind of like get used to that, and my opinions are similar as long as it doesn't like really give me a lot of damages. I think it's perfectly fine. It's just the norm of the digital era, and if you don't want to be filmed, just like be aware when you see something like a camera stayed away, or just bring a mask and put it on if you like want to walk in the public space safely.
A Batman mask.
And then you will be the target of that
video. Then you suddenly become the star of the show. It's an issue that's not going away anytime soon. As I said before, I'm very curious to see the outcome of that lawsuit, the lawyer versus Disney Shanghai, to see where the court kind of goes with their decision, because that might be precedent setting. That's going to be a landmark decision potentially, and that could influence how other businesses do their live streams in the future too. Interesting story.